If you're looking for a set of headphones that are comfortable, light, great sound, at a reasonable price and will suit most people in a variety of circumstances, then you may look no further than the SHOKZ Open Air. Let's take a look. Hello and welcome to stammerRun with me, John. The purposes of the video, just to let you know that these Open Air by SHOKZ were sent to me by SHOKZ. Views are opinions of my own, which I will share with you first. Let's get to it. So before we do anything else, let's get through the stats of the Open Air from SHOKZ. So there are a headphone that are kind of sit to the side of the ear. These have something in there called a direct pitch from SHOKZ, which basically means that they sit to the side of the ear, amplify the sound in the correct places, and they actually push that sound into the ear canal. Now there's a comfy angle on these of about 25.5%. There's an 18% angle whereby they sit on the ear at a comfy fit, but at this 25.5% fitting on the ear, these actually do feel really comfortable, really snug, really secure on the ear, to the point where I actually forget that they're on the ear. So the microphones on the Open Air, there are 4 of those. They have something called a clear voice, and they have an adaptive beam form on the headset, which basically just means that you can hear every single word from whoever's speaking and you speaking to that person. They are rated IP54 water resistant, and the same for sweat, not waterproof, but resistant for water and sweat. And a really useful feature of these is the multi-pairing connection, whereby you can use them to connect to your phone, to your MP3, take a call on your phone, and then switch back to whatever else. In terms of the battery life, on a single charge it was up to 6 hours, up to 28 hours of listening time with the charge case, and a 10-minute quick charge will give you 2 hours of listening time. So it's a fairly quick responsive time just to be able to charge up the headphones as well. So with all that said, what does that practically mean? So I've been testing these headphones now for a good month, and I've tested them in most everyday scenarios. So the kind of 3 main tests that I did was taking them into the car, having them sort of around the house and kind of around, and then taking them on a run. And let's take a look at the 3 scenarios now. So I'm currently outside with the SHOKZ Open Air, and so far so good. One thing that I like about these, already have a podcast playing in background, and even though I can hear the road noise, I can still hear the podcast really clearly. So actually, so far so good, and I like the sound of the headphones. You know, I think they're actually really good. I think compared even to the aftershocks that they used to be called, I actually think the sound of these is superior to those. Similar functionality, like an earbud or an earpod, whereby you touch it twice, 3 times to skip and all those songs. So, you know, the functionality of an earbud, but with the benefit of being bone conduction, and which means that you can use these in a race, I think. Is that the sound of these, and that's through air conduction, which is obviously different to the bone conduction shocks that I have, which fit around the neck, and these do feel really light. They feel really comfortable, and obviously unlike earbuds that sit into the ear, this sits just on the side of your ears, and they do actually feel pretty good. So I'm actually really impressed, and it's a really windy day. If you can hear the wind, and really impressed with the quality of the sound. I've also made calls on this as well, and again very impressed by the quality of the sound and through the clarity of the speakers that come out of these as well. So in a real world test in terms of your everyday usage of these, and the one thing that I will say that the perception that I had over kind of bone conduction. My experiences of bone conduction have always been through the races that I've done, and they've been kind of synonymous for me with having a run and whatever else, not necessarily everyday use. And I'd quite happily use these on a commute because I can actually hear everything around me, and it's not off-putting either. I can hear sounds clearly. I can hear the sound coming through the headphones. I can hear the sound coming from the road noise. I can hear buses and stuff like that. The residual sound, if you have it up high, other people can hear what you're listening to. So that's the downside in terms of the sound and the quality. So the downside in terms of the quality really and the sound that comes out of these is more so the residual sound that comes out of the earphone. If you're sat down and you want it up high, other people can hear the sound that comes out of them, but conversely it does go up quite loud. So, and the fact it doesn't sit in the ear as well, I think is better for your ear. So, you know, there's an up and a downside to the quality of the sound. However, all-round earphone, I'd probably say for the price is definitely up there in terms of what I need to use it for. So the last category really is what's it like when you take it out for a run. So primarily for me, this is what these are for. This is when you take them out on a run. This is what I will use these for. How do they do on a run?
Everything is what I want it to be. I look exactly like what you had always wanted to see. When I pretend, I can forget about the criminal I am. Stealing second after second just cause I know I can. But I can't pretend this is the way it'll stay. I'm just trying to bend.
So let's talk about these AfterShokz Open Air. Now, as we discussed already, in terms of everyday use, the sound out of these is brilliant, and I think they're in terms of really good. So being in the car, being on the walk, being on the train, well, that's kind of commute stuff. I think they're really, really good. Now, I kind of took these out already before today, and I normally wear a band around my head, and the band gets wet, and obviously it sticks to the earphones, so the earphones get really, really wet. And trying to touch them through a headband, I just don't think it's really fair on the earphones themselves. So it's only fair that I go for a run with that headband on. So today was a tempo effort, 8 mile, and I didn't put the headband on at all. Kind of tried to walk my hands, keep my hands clear at all times. And first of all, I can't fault sound. Does actually get quite loud. It's really clear. I think in terms of a race, I still think the bone conduction are, I think, slightly better than the air conduction, just only because they don't get as loud and you can kind of hear a little bit more. But the sound on these is better than bone conduction. But these have got one fundamental flaw, and for what I need them for what I do with flies air, so what I do with my bone conduction is I use them to race, I use them to train, and sad to say that these open air, and you probably won't see a lot of people run in these when they do their reviews because they don't run after all, but I'm sad to say that these are a little bit useless. Really disappointed in the fact that as soon as they get a bit wet, or your fingers get a bit wet, and I mean, look, these are open today, so they dry quite quickly, they just stop responding, or they respond in a really strange way. So when you tap them
they do different things what they're supposed to do. So you double tap to skip a song, or you single tap to stop the song. That stopped working, and you know, it's not like my head is soaking. It's all going into the hat. There's nothing that's covering the ears, and then all that happens is you tap the left to go down, and then you tap the right one to turn up the volume. It just doesn't work anymore, and the connection is not great either. So when I'm skipping through the songs, when it does work, there's this initial sort of buzzing sound, and it doesn't connect great first time. So even when it's connected to the watch and you skip forward a song, there's like this buzzing sound, and it's not great, to be honest with you. So in terms of what I actually need this for, if you're going to use these to run, I'm sorry, but they're not great at all, and these are not something that I would use for a race or every day, because I don't trust the earphones. It's the second time now taking them out, and both times they just don't work anymore. They're fully charged, and they're just not great. Now, the weight on these things is brilliant, and in terms of the fit on them as well, it's fantastic. Like, I cannot fault the sound, I cannot fault the weight. You know, two really key things that you sort of need on these, but the controls are awful. I just can't, you know, I just can't use something that doesn't function. So these touch controls, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of them anyway, and then the fact that they don't work on these, it's disappointing really, because, you know, they're superior to conduction in so many ways, but in the fundamental feature that I need, the functionality of them and the connection, and I'm sorry, they're just not great. So it's a shame. So I'm going to try to persevere now with slow walk home, and disappointed really.
So what do I overall think of the Shockz? Immediately what strikes me about these headphones that I weren't expecting, what's really hard to gauge, is the weight of the headphones. They are just so light and so comfortable that you don't actually expect the sound that comes out of these to sound as rich and as broad as it does, and it really does. You know, these are really, really light to the point where I use these after shocks, and you know, I typically wear these pretty much most of the time. You know, I like most things about these bone conduction, and what I found is I've started to transition from the bone conduction earphones that go around the head to these Shockz every day, because they're so useful, they're so handy, they're so light, and in most circumstances, if you're around in the kitchen, around in the house circumstances, these can handle most things. I also like that you can independently use the earphones as well. You know, you can have the left one in, the right one in the charge case, and they will work independently of each other. In terms of the sound, I think the sound can get quite loud. The first negative points of that, but this is the nature of these type of earphones. It's the same with the bone conduction ones as well, is that if you have it up too loud, other people can hear what you can essentially hear. So to be mindful of that is, you know, if you're kind of around, or like what I do often evening time when people are asleep, I may just use it for an hour or so before bed. People can hear that. If you're on a train in a quiet place, then the sound leakage that come out of these kind of headphones, and particularly these ones, because they are so loud and so good, that it may disturb other people. In terms of being able to connect the headphones to a phone, to a laptop, to a watch, you know, the process to do that is really quite easy. It's just a 2-finger touch initially, and there is an app as well, so you can use an app, and we'll kind of briefly talk about the app as well. So I sat down with the earphones. Now, one thing that I do like about the Shockz brand as well is it comes with an app, and I quite like this app already. So just got one open air in the ear. I've now opened up the app, so there's an app that comes with this as well, which I think is really quite handy. So it gives you, you know, the battery life of the left and the right. To make the app work, you do need to put both of the open airs in your ear, which is fine. I tend to have one at times, but two is fine. So, you know, you get your EQ modes on the app as well. You know, you've got standard, the vocal, so which means that, you know, it enhances your music and your ebooks, which I think is quite handy. You've got a boost, you've got a bass boost as well, the treble boost on there as well. So there's different horses for different courses on here as well. You've got your vocal option as well, treble boost. So even though you can go into the EQ modes, you kind of have a quick link to them as well. Got multi-point pairing as well, which means that you can go between, say, if you're listening to something like a podcast or something on your computer, and then you can listen to something, and then you can take a call or listen to something on your phone. So depending on what it is that you want, so you can switch between the two, which I think is really useful for someone like me who, you know, who at work, who listens to something and then I may take a call. So that's really handy as well. It's really simple to use. The connection is stable to a point, and, you know, you can switch between more than one phone or a laptop with the multi-use connection, which is really quite handy. Touch controls. Now, touch controls, I'm not the biggest fan of touch controls. In terms of the touch controls on these are fine. These work perfectly fine compared to some of the more expensive headphones that I own. Now, these are £113, and for that price they perform just as well as something like the Galaxy earphones or the Buds version 2s, and the touch controls on these are just as good as those. In the circumstances that I managed to use the open air Shockz, so things like being in the car, things like being able to talk, things like being able to listen to the sound around me, perfectly fine. So if you wanted to take calls in the car, you know, the clear voice is really good. Microphones on these, there are 4, and absolutely, you know, people can hear me and I can hear them whenever I speak or whenever I kind of want to talk on the phone to hear them. You know, it all sounds perfectly good, perfectly clear, and they're really good as an alternative headphone to take and make calls. Perfectly serviceable for the gym, and we'll get on to exercise in a second. You know, to go to the gym, connecting to the phone, perfectly fine. And, you know, I've now used these headphones, not the bone conduction ones, at the gym, just because I just find them really light. You know, I forget that they're there. You don't need to turn up the sound too much, and I just find that for what I do at the gym, for what I use at the gym, I find these headphones are absolutely fantastic. They stay put. You don't have to be concerned about them. Just a really good fitting, really good headphone. One that they may flap from side to side. I typically wear a kind of headband or hat to keep headphones in place, and that includes the bone conduction ones as well. And with these, you don't need to do that. The fit on these has surprised me, and they've grown on me in terms of, you know, the fit and the feel and the sound, and I kind of now use these kind of every single day. Negative point. Now, I would describe these for me as a nearly perfect headphone. Now, there are most situations I would happily use the headphones. Can I use these on a run? Now, sadly for me, there are probably 2 to 3 reasons why I can't use these open air Shockz to run, and it's a shame, and I shall tell you for why. Number 1 for me are the touch control. Now, for me, touch controls, I am not the biggest fan of touch control. So this is the nature of this type of headphone. Is I prefer a button, and the reason for that is what I find is if I want to skip songs forward and backwards and turn the volume up and down, it's so much more efficient and easier, and every single time you know what you're going to get with something like the Shockz bone conductions that fit around the head. You know, I know that a couple of clicks and I'm there. Now the problem with these open airs is that the moment you get sweat on them, and I mean it doesn't take a lot of sweat, you know, whenever you go for a run or whenever you go to the gym, you're gonna get quite a bit of sweat, or I do, and I find the responsiveness, sometimes they don't even respond, sometimes the response is hit and miss. While they may be resistant to sweat, I find the nature of the touch controls make it not a user-friendly experience. Doesn't mean that the sound come out of them is not great, but when I'm having to faff around trying to kind of change to a song, or sometimes, you know, it goes up so loud because it just, for whatever reason, they turn themselves up or they turn themselves low, I'm tending to find myself fiddling around with the headphones when I'm trying to be on a run. I may have a goal, a pace. I found myself fiddling around with the headphones more than I've ever found with any other headphone that I typically use. The price of about £113, I genuinely think you are getting a lot of tech in here. As I say, the kind of niche circumstance, which may apply to a lot of people who run. It depends on if you take out a watch, depends on how much you sweat. But for me, every other circumstance outside of that kind of niche condition whereby I'm going out on a run, I connect my headphones to the watch. But even with that said, for 99.9% of everything else, these are fantastic. I cannot fault them at all. Connection wise, weight wise, sound wise, these are an absolute brilliant headphone, and I recommend them fully. So if you get an opportunity, Shockz Open Air, check them out. Fantastic price, give them a go. And on that note, please don't forget to comment. Tell me what headphones that you rock, if you use any of the Shockz, if you use the bone conduction, if you use these open air conduction type of please don't forget to comment. And I'd love to know if you use Shockz, if you use the open air bone conduction, what kind of headphones or earphones that you use every day. Maybe there are some that you think are better than these. And please don't forget to like, favourite and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.